Hello and welcome to CBC Arts Exhibitionists. I'm your host, Amanda Paris. If you spent most of your time in social isolation binge watching old episodes of Gossip Girl, I am not here to judge you, but I am here to introduce you to some artists who may inspire you to get off the couch. Today we'll meet an Indigenous dancer bringing healing to his community one hoop at a time. Professor Lees is here to give us the 101 on still life, the bottom of the barrel in the grand hierarchy of painting. We'll learn about how one artist makes plain old paper into something mysterious. And we visit legendary filmmaker Floria Sigismondi to see how old photos have become her new artistic inspiration in social isolation. It is 30 minutes of art, and even more art. I hope you're ready for it because this is CBC Arts Exhibitionists. We recently launched a brand new season of our dance series, The Move, and this year the spotlight is on kids. This 17-year-old truly looks like a magical being while he's hoop dancing, but it's his desire to share his Indigenous traditions that is truly impressive. While in social isolation, Thiland Kiknoswe has been busy, coordinating socially distant drum circles, singing, and making TikTok videos about braiding hair. While I can't promise that you'll look as cool as Thiland if you try the spinner, I can promise that you will be inspired. Take a look.
My name is Thiland Kiknoswe. In my Anishinaabe Mo'win language, my name would be Kapisi Smut Napisis, which means Sundance Boy. And I also have another name, Nimki Benoje, which is Thunderbird Boy. I am 16 years old, and I do the hoop dance. The hoop dance is a storytelling dance where essentially you share things that you might see from creation. It's a perspective dance. So basically, if I'm trying to portray like a winged creature, some people might see it as an eagle, others might see a hawk or a raven. And so that's why human beings are so beautiful, because we all have our own two eyes that we can see out of. It's originally from the Hopi Nation. I first learned how to hoop dance when I was about 4 years old. I seen this very talented man. He's a 3-time world champion hoop dancer, and his name is Dallas Arcand. I was just mesmerized by the way he could move these hoops. I said to my mom, I said, you know, I want to be a hoop dancer. I want to do the things that he does. And I've been continuing that dance journey for about 12 years now.
My English name is Elaine Kiknoswe. I carry one spirit name of Pizukwe, which translates to Lynx Woman, the one who carries the secrets, good and bad. I was raised in child welfare and adopted out in the 60s scoop, and eventually I was raised in Ottawa. When you compare my life to his life, there's so many worlds apart. When I've been raising him, I always wanted to make sure that he knew the truth. Know your territory, know your community, know your family, know your language, know your name, know your songs.
You know, the more that I can learn, the more that I can pass down onto the next generation. When I'm dancing, I know that I'm carrying the thousands of generations of my ancestors on my back. And so being able to share this powerful dance means a whole lot to me. That means that I'm changing the times and rising for those voices that were shut down, The move that I'm going to show involves 4 hoops, and I like to call it the spinner. And they basically, all 4 hoops go on all of my arms, and I spin them 2 in one direction and 2 in the other direction. And when you look at it from one angle, it looks very beautiful. You open up your 4 hoops, you glue these 2 onto your shoulders, put them up to the sky, and as they're in the sky, you let go of the 2 that are on your shoulders, and they will start to spin, just like that. And these 2 on the side, you want to get these rolling the other direction on your hands.
When I watch him dance, I feel that it includes everybody. Everybody that might not feel that they belong.
For myself and for my generation, revitalizing as much of these dances and carrying on as much of this knowledge and these languages, you know, that's the only way I think we're going to keep our traditions alive. The more that I can learn, the more that can be passed down to my children and their grandchildren. And all I ask is that I want to be a good ancestor for the next generation.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Yui Savage. I am a non-binary artist based on Treaty 7 territory in Alberta. Through my practice, I like to think through ideas of parasocial relationships, artificial existence, and virtual intimacy. Today, I'm going to be showcasing some work I've made and some work I've been making since self-isolation, so check it out.
Coming up, Professor Lees is here to tell us why still life painting has hung around for centuries.
Back in the 16th and 17th centuries, some men, who were undoubtedly uncles, came up with a hierarchy of painting for the art world. At the top, paintings with people in them, so usually scenes of historical, mythological, or biblical events. Then you have portraits, also of people. Then subjects that come from everyday life. Then landscapes, paintings of animals, and way down at the bottom, still life. But for some reason, it's stuck around for the entire history of visual art. I'm Professor Lees, not really a professor, and this is Art 101, not really a class. We're here to go on a deep dive of an idea, an artwork, or a story from the art world that's controversial, inexplicable, or just plain weird. And our question today is, what's the deal with still life painting? What is it? Why did it start? What were some of the motivations behind it? And how has it clung onto that low spot on the gallery wall instead of politely disappearing? Well, let's simplify it and say it's a painting of objects that are at rest. It was ubiquitous throughout European painting and featured tables laden with fruit, flowers, and maybe a skull. Here's one reason, because they like to win-win-win. There's a story from antiquity about how 2 painters, Zevskis and Parasios, had a contest to figure out who was the better painter. Zevskis painted a bunch of grapes that looked so real birds tried to eat them. Parasios had his painting hidden behind a sneaky curtain, and when Zevskis tried to move the curtain to reveal Parasios' work, it turned out the curtain wasn't real. I don't know whether this story is true, but it points to the drive among artists to fool our eye and the banality of normal objects as a vehicle to showcase their talent. Another reason artists painted still lifes? Religion. Religious art is a trickstery little art form full of symbols that were understandable to the initiated, like how arrows could let you know you were looking at a painting of Saint Sebastian. Everyday objects could play a similar role. So when you saw a small still life as part of a scene in a religious work, it could be commenting on the larger narrative playing out around it. For instance, a rose could symbolize the Virgin Mary, or a lily, virginity. In both Northern Europe and in Italy, where still life painting tended to be called nature morte, or dead stuff, there was also a scientific impulse. In the age of scientific inquiry, there was a drive to find out more about things in the world, classify them, order them, and find out more about their individual properties. This coincided nicely with the idea that art was aiming to perfectly replicate the world in 2 dimensions. But the symbolic nature of still life painting never quite went away. In Northern Europe, it wasn't uncommon to see a skull amongst the fruits and flowers, or see everything in a state of kind of gross decay. This was to signal an element of vanitas, or memento mori. By the way, there's a whole Art 101 about that. The idea that time passes, things rot, and you will one day not be here. Still life painting fell somewhat out of favor as we moved into the later 19th and early 20th century, as artists started breaking the rules of painting and revolting against rules made by surly men. But even then, the detritus of normal life, like wine bottles and newspapers, made a great tool for saying things about painting. Cézanne played with perspective in his still lifes to the point that it often looked like a table was about to topple. Matisse used still life to play with color, and Picasso, I still don't like you, Picasso, and his Cubist compatriots painted a lot of cafe tables, not only to play with ideas about 2-dimensionality, but to comment on cafe culture of the time and the conversations and music happening around them. Later in the 20th century, still life subjects got further transposed by artists of Dada and Surrealism. Marcel Duchamp used things like a urinal and a bike wheel to question what we consider to be art. Even in more contemporary art, the still life is still relevant. Think of Warhol's Campbell's soup cans, an examination of a common object that's also a critique of commodification. Artists today have resurrected the phantom of the still life in a critical way. Ursula Johnson stages her works like still life sculptures of tourist souvenirs to talk about stereotyping and commodification of Indigenous culture. We may not be invoking religious symbolism or competing in weird art contests, but still life painting still held and holds real value for artists, even if your uncle doesn't think it's real art. See you next time on Art 101.
Thanks, Professor Lees. You can watch even more editions of Art 101 now at cbc.ca/art101. When you're traveling across the country, you learn the benefits of packing light. And when Christine Kim had to move to Victoria for school, she realized she had to ration her art supplies. So she traveled with paper and began to realize its possibilities and its potential. It's a really good lesson for those of us in social isolation who have to make do with what we've got. Take a look.
Most of the time when I do projects or come up with ideas, it's always, my first question is, okay, how can I create that in paper? My name is Christine Kim. I'm a Toronto-based paper artist. I was doing a master's in arts education, and I had to fly out to Victoria every summer for 3 summers in a row. And so the easiest thing that I could carry or I could buy there that's kind of very portable is paper. And it just led to like wall collages, like it was just kind of like a huge tornado of paper. My artwork really revolves around paper and all that paper can do. When I begin, I start with a figure. Lately, I've been either cutting into the figure or somehow erasing them and their identity. And I kind of like that tension and that mystery. The gap of not knowing is something that we kind of strive to overcome in relationships. There's always like something lost in translation or things that you are unable to communicate just through words and gestures, and it's always that there's a gap. Most recently, I've been really interested in botanical silhouettes. There is this sort of unknowability when you enter like a dark forest. And I wanted to create that same sort of sense of like walking into sort of an unknown space. The final step of the paper cut collage is the actual paper cuts. And for this collage, I chose patterns that come from an ornate fence. And then laying paper cuts on top of the figure itself adds another layer of tension and mystery and like not knowing. We're surrounded by fences and boundaries physically, and also we create fences in ourselves. So I thought it would be a really good sort of metaphor to have in my artwork. I think for paper, it's really the versatility, accessibility as well that keeps me in. It allows other people to look at my artwork and see that it's doable for them, and it inspires creativity in other people's lives.
Coming up, we visit the woman who changed the music video landscape with her jittering, gothy glam aesthetic.
I am in peace.
Focused and connected. I am in peace.
What do Rihanna, Marilyn Manson, Dua Lipa, and David Bowie all have in common? They've all hired Floria Sigismondi to direct their music videos. Floria has created a signature dark aesthetic that has kept her booked and busy for decades. But right now, when all productions have been shut down, Floria's at home, scouring old photo albums, reflecting on the passage of time, and painting portraits.
My name is Floria Sigismondi. I am a film director and an artist.
What could I do to change your mind?
During this time in incubation, as I'm calling it, I've had a lot of time to reflect and just thinking of time sort of as the past, present, and future, and what my feelings are towards that. I found myself looking at old photo albums of family, friends, a time when we were able to, just run around free, and looking at those and reprocessing them through paintings and artwork. This picture grabbed my attention. Her expression is very strong. And I decided to recreate that, bringing this moment, a past moment, into the present by painting it. And this is the painting I recreated from that photograph. This is my dining room, where I've set up a makeshift studio, and I have all my paints here ready at any time I feel inspired. This painting is of my mother. Her father, my grandfather, was an apiary in Italy. I've been very nostalgic just thinking about them in Italy, since that's where they are during this pandemic. Here's my dog. Her name is Ophelia. She's enjoying the sun. There's something wonderful about painting in the same way meditation works, where you just kind of give yourself to it. You don't judge, you don't ask questions, you're just going. I pick colors at any random moment. And I do quite daring things that I would normally think about a lot there's just a sort of great intuitive thing that happens, like going over a painting, half of a painting with a solid color after I've just worked hours on it. Like this. In an instant, I covered the bottom half in red, and it worked better for me compositionally. And also the idea, and I didn't know this was going to happen when I went over it in the color, it was still transparent. So now it has the illusion of it being liquid. And there's something really great. And now it's become, something more exciting for me. I really believe that we'll come out of this different. I'm hopeful that we can utilize and use this time to reflect, to make the world a better place, to come up with ideas that we can then use in the world, whether they're artistic or actual ways of implementing things for the better of all. And so one would hope that we come out beautiful butterflies.
If you have an artist that you think should be on CBC Arts Exhibitionist, send me a message on social media. Our handle is @CBC Arts. Before we go, I have to give a major shout out to our CBC Arts team who recently won 2 trophies at the Canadian Screen Awards for Canada's Drag and Super Queeros. I am super proud to be part of this team of superstars. Tune in next time for another deep dive into the captivating work of Canadian artists. Peace.
Loading, attempting to retrieve meaning. Loading, attempting to retrieve meaning. Meaning cannot be found. Retry.